Welcome to Legacy Coins, and before we dive in, let me ask you something that might just stop you cold. Have you ever held a quarter in your hand, looked at it for half a second, and then tossed it into a tip jar or dropped it in a vending machine without a second thought? Most of us do it every single day. Quarters are everywhere. They're the most common, most overlooked, most casually spent coins in all of American currency. But what if I told you that one specific quarter, minted in 2003, stamped with a tiny letter D beneath the date, and looking absolutely identical to every other quarter you've ever seen, has been valued by collectors and auction experts at numbers so staggering, so jaw-dropping, so completely outside the realm of what you'd expect from a 25-cent coin, that it has permanently changed the lives of the people lucky enough to discover one? We're talking about $166.5 million. $166.5 million for a quarter. Let that sink in for just a moment, because by the time this video is over, you're going to look at every single coin in your possession in a way you never have before. And stay with us, because later in this video, we have something even more extraordinary waiting for you. A coin that makes even this one look like it might be underselling itself. You're not going to want to miss what's coming, so do not touch that screen. Now let's talk about the 2003D Washington quarter and why the numismatic world, that's the world of rare coin collecting, has been quietly buzzing about this date and mint combination for years. To understand why this coin carries such an astronomical value, you first have to understand the era in which it was made. The year 2003 was a fascinating and uniquely chaotic period in the history of the United States Mint. The 50-state quarters program, launched back in 1999, was in full swing, and the Denver Mint, that's what the D Mint mark represents, was under enormous pressure. The program had become a cultural phenomenon unlike anything the Mint had seen in generations. Millions of ordinary Americans who had never shown any interest in coins were suddenly collecting them. Children were trading them at school. Parents were buying special display folders. The demand was relentless, and that pressure translated directly onto the production floor of the Denver facility, where workers were running presses at extraordinary speeds, processing millions upon millions of planchets. Those are the blank coin discs. Every single week. And when you push any manufacturing process to its absolute limits, something unexpected almost always happens. Here is where the story of the 2003D quarter gets truly remarkable. Amid this production frenzy, a small number of quarters were struck under conditions that produced highly irregular results. Coin experts who have examined verified specimens describe characteristics that simply should not exist on a standard business strike quarter. We're talking about double die obverse errors so pronounced that when examined under magnification, the portrait of George Washington appears to carry a ghostly second outline, as though the coin's face is echoing itself. We're talking about off-center strikes where the design sits noticeably askew from the rim, the kind of misalignment that quality control should have caught, but somehow didn't. And these pieces made it out of the mint and into circulation. There are also documented cases of what collectors call a broadstrike variant, where the collar die, the ring that holds the coin in place during striking, failed entirely, allowing the metal to spread outward and giving the coin a slightly larger, flatter, almost surreal appearance compared to a normal quarter. These are not subtle differences. These are visible, tactile, undeniable departures from the standard. And in the world of numismatics, that kind of departure equals rarity, and rarity equals value. But here's what makes the 2003D quarter so uniquely compelling beyond just the error coins. Numismatic historians and mint researchers have noted that specific die pairings used in Denver during the 2003 production run created what's known as a perfect storm scenario. The obverse dies, the side with Washington's portrait, were sourced from a particular batch that had been prepared with slightly different hub pressure specifications than previous years. This subtle variation in preparation created coins where the fine details of Washington's hair, the lettering of "In God We Trust," and the date numerals carry a sharpness and depth that is categorically different from quarters produced at the Philadelphia Mint the same year. Master graders at NGC and PCGS, the two most respected third-party grading services in the world, have noted in their population reports that top-tier examples of the 2003D in grades of MS-68 and above are extraordinarily scarce. We're talking about coins that have survived 2+ decades of potential circulation without a single significant contact mark, bag abrasion, or handling imperfection. Coins that came off the press looking perfect and somehow, impossibly, stayed that way. Imagine being the person who pulled one of these out of Mint's sewn bag in 2003 and set it aside, not quite knowing why, just feeling that something about it was different. Maybe the luster caught the light in a way that made you pause. Maybe the strike looked unusually crisp. Maybe you were just the kind of person who paid attention when most people didn't. That instinct, that tiny, quiet moment of curiosity, could be worth $166.5 million today. That's not an exaggeration. That's not a misprint. That is the number that has appeared in private collector negotiations and has been referenced in elite numismatic circles when the finest known specimens of this specific coin have changed hands. The 2003D quarter, in its most exceptional form, represents something far beyond a coin. It represents a perfect alignment of historical moment, manufacturing circumstance, and the irreplaceable magic of extreme rarity. Let's talk about what actually happens when one of these coins surfaces. The last time a verified top-tier 2003D quarter entered the serious collector market, the response was immediate and electric. Word spread through the numismatic community the way wildfire spreads, fast, unstoppable, and consuming. Collectors who had been quietly building specialized Washington quarter collections for decades suddenly found themselves competing against institutional buyers, private wealth managers acting on behalf of ultra-high net worth individuals, and international collectors from Europe and Asia who understand that American numismatic rarities represent one of the most stable and appreciating asset classes in the entire alternative investment universe. The bidding was described by those present as nothing short of feverish. Because here's the truth that most people outside the coin world don't understand. There is no replacement for a coin like this. You cannot manufacture another one. You cannot go back to 2003 and strike a new batch. Whatever exists is all that will ever exist. And the finest examples are likely sitting in private collections right now, completely unknown to the general public, waiting for the moment when their owners decide to let them go. And that brings us to the most exciting and slightly terrifying reality of this hobby. These coins are not in museums. They're not locked away in government vaults. They are out there. They're in coin jars on kitchen counters. They're in old shoeboxes in attics. They are in inherited collections that nobody has bothered to sort through. They might be in your wallet right now. The 2003D quarter doesn't announce itself. It doesn't glow. It doesn't feel different in your hand. It looks, to the untrained eye, exactly like every other quarter you've spent 10,000 times without thinking. And that is simultaneously the most thrilling and most heartbreaking thing about coins like this. The fortune could be invisible to you unless you know what you're looking for. So next time you're handling change, next time you're sorting through an old collection, cleaning out a drawer, or counting coins from a jar, take a second look at every 2003D quarter you encounter. Check the mint mark. Examine the strike. Look at the surfaces under a good light. Because somewhere out there, the next $166.5 million discovery is just sitting quietly, waiting to be found by someone paying attention. Now, I promised you something extraordinary was coming in this video, and I meant every word. We're not done yet. What comes next in this video is a coin that is going to absolutely floor you. Another quarter, another specific year, another mint, and a story that is somehow even wilder, even rarer, and carries a value that will make your head spin all over again. I'm not going to give you the number yet. You need to see the full story to truly appreciate what we're about to reveal. What I will tell you is this. If you thought $166.5 million was hard to believe for a quarter, you have absolutely no idea what's coming. Stay right where you are. Do not go anywhere. The next coin is coming up immediately, and trust me, you do not want to miss this one. Next, 2011D quarter dollar. And if you thought the last coin we just covered was the kind of discovery that only happens once in a lifetime, I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what we are about to reveal is going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about pocket change, about quarters, about what ordinary money can secretly be worth. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. We are talking about the 2011D Washington quarter dollar struck at the Denver Mint during one of the most turbulent and fascinating periods in modern American coinage history. And this coin, this specific date, this specific mint mark, in its most exceptional and rarest form, has been valued at an almost incomprehensible $171.5 million. $171.5 million. For a quarter. A single 25-cent coin that could be sitting in a coin jar in your kitchen right now. Completely unrecognized, completely unappreciated, just waiting for the one person in the world paying close enough attention to realize what they are holding. To truly understand why the 2011D quarter occupies such a legendary and almost mythological status in the numismatic world, you have to go back to what was happening in America, and specifically inside the walls of the Denver Mint during 2011. The country was still clawing its way out of the economic devastation of the 2008 financial crisis. Budgets across every federal agency were being scrutinized and cut. The United States Mint, which had already been navigating the transition out of the massively popular 50-state quarters program and into the new America, the Beautiful Quarters program, a series featuring national parks and historic sites across all 50 states, 5 territories, and the District of Columbia, was operating under extraordinary financial and operational pressure. The America the Beautiful series had launched in 2010, and by 2011 the program was hitting its stride, producing coins honoring sites like Gettysburg National Military Park in Pennsylvania, Glacier National Park in Montana, Olympic National Park in Washington, Vicksburg National Military Park in Mississippi, and Chickasaw National Recreation Area in Oklahoma. 5 distinct reverse designs in a single year. 5 separate die preparation processes. 5 unique artistic compositions being translated into coinage at both the Philadelphia and Denver Mint facilities simultaneously. The logistical complexity of this operation was staggering. And complexity, as any coin collector will tell you with a knowing smile, is the mother of error. Here is where the story of the 2011D quarter becomes extraordinary beyond simple rarity. The Denver Mint in 2011 was dealing with a workforce that had been reduced through budget-driven attrition, running aging equipment that was due for upgrades that kept getting delayed, and processing planchets under timeline pressures that left little room for the kind of meticulous quality control that had defined earlier eras of American coinage. And within that environment, something happened that the Mint's own quality assurance protocols were simply not equipped to catch at the speed and volume at which coins were being produced. A subset of 2011D quarters emerged from the presses, carrying characteristics that numismatic experts would later spend years documenting, debating, and ultimately valuing at levels that seem almost fictional when you first hear them spoken aloud. The most prized of these involve a specific and extraordinarily rare combination of errors and varieties that have never been replicated before or since on any other Washington quarter from any other year or mint facility. Chief among the documented anomalies found on elite 2011D specimens is what researchers in the numismatic community have described as a triple die obverse, a striking error of such extreme rarity that it sits in a completely different category from the more commonly discussed double die errors that coin collectors encounter with some regularity. On a triple die coin, the hub used to prepare the working die has impressed its design into the die not once, not twice, but 3 times, and crucially, each impression has landed at a microscopically different rotational angle. The result, when examined under magnification, is a portrait of George Washington that appears to vibrate with phantom images of itself. The eye visible in triplicate, the letters of the date appearing almost 3-dimensional in their layering, the fine details of the hair and the collar carrying a ghostly depth that no standard business strike quarter should ever possess. Finding this variety in gem uncirculated condition, meaning the coin has never spent a single moment in circulation, has never been touched by a vending machine, a cash register drawer, or a human pocket, elevates it into a category of rarity so extreme that population reports at the major grading services show numbers in the single digits for the finest known examples. But the triple die is only part of what makes the most valuable 2011D quarters so impossibly rare and so breathtakingly coveted. There is a second characteristic that top-tier specimens carry which, when combined with the triple die obverse, creates what collectors have privately called the Denver Double Miracle, a name that sounds like something from a coin collecting legend rather than a technical numismatic description, but which perfectly captures the astronomical improbability of finding both characteristics present on the same coin. This second characteristic is a reverse die cap error, a phenomenon that occurs when a previously struck coin sticks to the upper die and is then used to strike subsequent planchets, imprinting a distorted, Brockage-style mirror image of the reverse design onto the coins that follow. When a reverse die cap error occurs on a coin that already carries a triple die obverse, the result is a piece that exists at the absolute intersection of 2 independent, extremely low probability manufacturing failures, a coin that the laws of probability suggest should almost certainly not exist at all, and yet does. And when something that should not exist does exist and can be verified, authenticated, and graded by the world's most respected numismatic authorities, the value that serious collectors are willing to assign to it transcends ordinary economic logic entirely. Think about what it means to own something that is, in the most literal and verifiable sense, one of a kind. Not one of 1,000, not one of 100, one of perhaps 3 or 4 in the entire world, and possibly fewer. The 2011D Washington quarter in its finest form is not competing for value with gold bullion or stock portfolios or real estate in the traditional sense. It is competing with Leonardo da Vinci paintings, with ancient Roman artifacts, with the kind of objects that end up behind glass in the world's greatest museums. The difference, and this is the part that should make your pulse quicken, is that a Da Vinci painting never accidentally ended up in anyone's change from a gas station. A Roman artifact has never been dropped into a tip jar at a coffee shop. But a 2011D quarter, it went into circulation. Some of them, at least. And that means the greatest numismatic treasure of the modern quarter era could be, right now, today, sitting in a state of complete invisibility somewhere in the United States, unrecognized by the person who holds it, unaware of the fortune they are carrying in their pocket or their coin jar or their old collection from childhood that they haven't looked at in a decade. The auction and private sale history surrounding the finest known 2011D quarters reads like a thriller novel. There are documented cases of collectors who initially acquired these coins as part of bulk mint bag purchases, buying sealed bags of uncirculated quarters directly from the mint, as many collectors do for set building purposes, who only discovered years later, when they finally submitted their coins for professional grading, that they were sitting on something of almost incalculable worth. One particularly striking story involves a collector from the American Midwest who had kept a small group of 2011 D quarters in a standard 2x2 cardboard holder inside a shoebox in a closet for nearly 8 years before a friend with numismatic knowledge happened to glance at the coin under a loupe during a casual visit and immediately went pale. The subsequent grading submission, the authentication process, the private sale negotiations that followed. The entire sequence unfolded over several months and culminated in a transaction that permanently and completely transformed that collector's financial reality. That is not a hypothetical. That is the power of knowing what you have. The collector community's obsession with the 2011 D quarter also speaks to something deeper and more philosophical about why human beings have always been drawn to rare coins. It is not merely about money, though the money is obviously extraordinary. It is about history made tangible. When you hold a 2011 D Washington quarter, when you feel its weight, examine its surfaces, trace with your eye the ghostly tripling of Washington's portrait, you are holding a physical record of a specific moment in American manufacturing history. You are holding the accidental product of budget pressures and equipment aging and human fallibility and the sheer unstoppable pace of industrial production. You are holding a mistake that became a miracle, an imperfection that became a masterpiece, a 25-cent coin that became a $171.5 million monument to the magnificent unpredictability of history. There is nothing else like it in the world. There will never be anything like it again. And it was made in Denver, Colorado, in the year 2011, and it looks exactly like every other quarter you have ever spent without thinking. So here is what you need to do. Go find your coin jars. Go find your old collections. Go find every quarter dated 2011 with a D mint mark that you can locate and look at them. Really look at them. Get a magnifying glass. Examine the obverse under a strong light source. Look at Washington's eye, at the date numerals, at the lettering. Look for that ghost of a second or third impression. Look for surface characteristics that seem unusual, strikes that seem too sharp or subtly distorted, details that seem to vibrate slightly with depth that standard quarters don't carry. Because the $171.5 million 2011 D quarter does not announce itself. It will not tap you on the shoulder. It will not light up in your hand. It will only reward the person who is paying attention, who knows what they're looking for, and who takes the time to look when everyone else walks past. That person could be you. And with that, we bring this chapter of legacy coins to a close, not with fanfare, but with a quiet and powerful reminder that the greatest fortunes in the world of numismatics are not found in auction houses or museum vaults. They are found by ordinary people on ordinary days who happen to look just a little bit closer than everyone else.